So although Robert Mueller said he believes Attorney General William Barr acted in good faith, he did say that yesterday, by first only releasing an interpretation of the report, Mueller's words about the investigation, its findings, and even his disagreements with how the Justice Department rolled them out, those stood in stark contrast with the Attorney General's views.
Reports have emerged recently, General, that members of the special counsel's team are frustrated at some level with the limited information included in your March 24th letter. Do you know what they're referencing with that?
No, I don't. I suspect that they probably wanted, more put out.
At one point in time, I requested that certain portions of the report be released.
The Deputy Attorney General and I concluded that the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense.
The Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
So Jeremy Bash, just in reading that statement yesterday, Robert Mueller, although he may not have intended it, maybe he did, was undercutting a lot of the interpretation that was provided by the Attorney General a couple of months ago.
Well, I think he intended it very clearly, Willie. I mean, the report came out on April 18th. Bob Mueller, 6 weeks later, is standing in front of the podium principally to do two things. Number one is to push back on the president's narrative that there's nothing to see here with respect to the Russian attack. No, Bob Mueller is saying there's very much something to see here, and Mr. President, you welcoming it, or at the very least, not condemning it, is very dangerous to America. And second is, I think he's making a clear statement to the Attorney General that your characterization of my conclusions was manifestly misleading. It was inappropriate. It did a disservice to the work that the special counsel's office did, and it fundamentally was unjust. And so for the Bob Mueller to stand there and say it's unconstitutional for us to make a determination, and then for Bill Barr to say, oh, I made the determination, there's not sufficient evidence, I think is, again, a very clear invitation by Bob Mueller to say to Congress, do your job.
So, Joyce Vance, where did you hear contrast between what Robert Mueller said in those 8 minutes yesterday and what Bill Barr has now been saying over the course of 3 months about Mueller's investigation?
Seems to me that the biggest contradiction is the Attorney General's insistence that Mueller could have made what the Attorney General calls a binary decision, either indict or don't indict. The Attorney General always seemed to think that that was a possibility for Mueller. Mueller, on the other hand, is relatively clear. We did not have that option. It would have been unconstitutional for us to pass on whether or not a sitting president deserved indictment. And we've done our work. We've collected our investigation for people who may come later or for Congress, but we couldn't make that binary call that the Attorney General has repeatedly hounded us for failing to make.
All right, Joyce Vance, always great to have your point of view, especially on mornings like this. Thanks so much. Still ahead on Morning Joe, some stunning new reporting about the backdrop to President Trump's visit with American troops in Japan. The White House reportedly wanted the U.S. Navy to move the warship named after John McCain and to get it out of sight ahead of the president's visit. Sailors who wear caps bearing the destroyer's name were given the day off. Our Pentagon correspondent Hans Nichols joins us straight ahead. But
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.